Today we have Jackson Wightman from Proper Propaganda, PR company based in the US. And we're going to be talking a little bit about PR, how you guys started, how do you guys add value to customers, and some pro cons that PR has for some companies and how this company should be getting ready. So I basically let you start with some introduction, Jackson, about you and the company background. What are you guys doing?
Sure. So we are, as you said, a tech-focused PR company that works primarily, we work across the Anglosphere, but primarily in the US market. A large portion of our clients are coming from outside of North America and want to build their brand equity in the US. So we've been around for 12 years. We've worked with companies big and small, and we've had the chance to work with companies from all over the world. So that's Israel, Asia, South America, lots of Europeans, and a fair share of US companies as well, of course. So we have, I think, 4 distinct service offerings. One that's brand narrative, which is really the words around a brand. Second, something I would call classic PR, media relations, influencer relations, that kind of stuff. Third offering that I would call performance PR, which is a little bit more like affiliate marketing. And then a fourth offering that I would say is more influencer centric, KOL centric. So that's us in a nutshell. We work, as I say, primarily with tech and innovators, and we've been around for a while.
Okay, perfect. So I know that there's like a whole world on the PR management, different solutions. Where are you guys standing? What type of companies you serve, or what's your unique positioning on that space?
Yeah, so I think we normally serve companies that are having a scale up moment. And what I mean by that is when we've done work around Kickstarters and crowdfunding and stuff like that in the past, a lot of our companies they've got market traction and they have some sales, or they have an indication that they're going to have sales in the United States. So maybe they signed a retail contract, maybe they've gone on to Amazon or whatever it is, and they're looking to kind of build out their brand, and they have budget to do that. So typically, what does this mean? It means to C round companies at least. Sometimes they have somewhere between a few million and 50 million in sales, and they have very specific targets to bolstering that.
Okay, that's good. And this is these type of companies, because we were like pre-talking before about these Kickstarter companies, but now you mentioned companies who are kind of like ready to scale. Usually, you prefer to work with companies who they already launched their product, rather than working with crowdfunding companies, or you can actually also help them to develop this crowdfunding thing, because you also work with these Shenzhen-based accelerator hacks.
Yeah.
And those are more like, rather than scaling, are more like launching, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've done over 500 crowdfunding campaigns since 2012.
Okay,
So we are very familiar. We're super familiar with that world and with what it is to be an early stage product centric company. My advice usually is, unless those companies are quite well funded and quite well capitalized, that they typically should wait a little bit for professional PR. Do I think that Kickstarter stage companies need to have PR? Probably they don't. Probably you can get away with a Kickstarter that uses more performance marketing and some of the other levers that you know and your audience would know. PR comes into play, brand comes into play after the Kickstarter moment. So when you're going to Amazon, when you're going to Walmart, when you're going to bestbuy.com, whatever it is, brand is going to matter, and PR is the servant of brand.
Good point. It's like when you mentioned this about these crowdfunding campaigns, these companies that they can actually go on their own. But I've seen a lot of Kickstarter crowdfunding companies who, even if they try to actually go with PR, they don't have like a lot of good results either, right? It seems like You probably send, I mean, journalists, but they would, let's say journalists in general, they're bombarded by different emails, different companies, and some companies, they don't really get to have any space on any blog or any paper media or whatever that is. How did you actually, build your network? What are the things that how was the process? Were you coming from another media, another PR company, or you started from scratch, developing relationships? How that goes? What's the background between all this?
It's a good question. So I'm one partner in the firm, and there's another partner in the firm.
Okay.
I came originally from politics, so I was actually a member of
Great.
the issue management team of a prime minister in Canada. That's how I started my career. My partner started in various other comms functions. But when we started the agency, and we started the agency in 2012, we were not a tech agency. We actually didn't really know much about technology. We were coming from other backgrounds, and we just kind of happened into it. And I think this is probably a common story across many agencies. We had a few serendipitous, lucky breaks. We stumbled into a couple of mandates that happened to go well, and they happened to be for technology companies. And we were like, oh shit, we can do this. So that's where we started from. In terms of the craft of PR and in terms of building our network of media and influencers, it's something that takes a lot of time. I think this is why often companies coming from a situation where they're in Asia and they want to come into North America, they are well advised and they are intelligent to find a partner they can get with, because the partner not only has a network but also knows the cultural nuances of how things are done here. They know they have specific expertise in what North American media like, because what North American media like, what TechCrunch likes, and how they do business and the way they go about things is different than the way 36KR would go about things. There are some fundamental differences in terms of approach. So I think, we built our network slow and steady. We happened into it by chance. But I think that's one of the main things a company coming from Asia needs to think about is, how do I find a partner who has a network I can leverage?
Yeah. Okay. And this is so what you developed this secret sauce on politics, let's say, and then you applied it to consumer products, and then it started working. You guys started getting the customers. And what's a tactic, or what is a little bit of the process, how it is actually works? Probably companies want PR. Okay, like not all PR is the same, I believe. Like, do you have like a process or something, like step solutions that you usually apply to them, so they feel like, okay, this how's that working?
Yeah, we absolutely have a process, and I'm happy to speak to it because I think it's a part of PR that's often PR, at least in North America, is viewed as this kind of dark art and this thing that happens behind and it's all very mysterious. And that, of course, is total bullshit. That is a myth created by the PR industrial complex, of which I'm sometimes a proud member of that PR industrial complex. But let me help dispel the myth a little bit and speak to our process. For us, it almost always begins with what we call brand narrative, which is the way a company is talking about itself. How a company presents itself to the world, the words around a brand. We always start there. And what do we really look at, and what is the mistake a lot of companies make? A lot of companies, particularly product companies, particularly engineering-driven companies from Asia, tend to make the same set of mistakes. They tend to focus on features and the product and the engineering behind it, and how maybe they were able to build something amazing for a low cost. And all of those things do matter, but really you have to start with the customer in the position of the hero of the story. And so our process always begins by that, by saying, what is the customer? Who is the customer? What is the problem they have? And how do you help them with that problem? How do you, the company, help with that problem? So we start there. From there, we start thinking about tactics and strategies. And so strategies and tactics for us are, who are we going to approach? Is it a mix of KOLs and media?
Yeah.
What are we saying to these people? How are we getting in touch? Are we producing an event? Are we sending samples of a product? Whatever it is there. Once the strategy is built, we then build out all of the necessary materials and architecture to go do the doing. And then we do the doing. And I'm being pretty simple with the process, but I want to underline that it really begins with a sort of analysis and review of not only the kind of competitive macro environment a company exists in, but who is the customer and how is the customer coming to find the company? What is the problem they are seeking to solve by looking at a specific product or company?
I think when it comes to I mean, I work with different hardware companies. Not that I work with them. So I mean, obviously, I work with hardware companies, but I was gonna say, like, in some other startup accelerators, who the companies that were not necessarily Asian, they were also European. Some of them Americans. You still see, like, some companies who are, like, very product oriented just because they don't want to do any user research, any customer development. Now, and they talk about the product and the we all know that in startups there's a lot of, like, fake problems to justify the solution that they bring into the table. So when you have this type of you probably came across with these founders who are very product oriented. How do you actually create a narrative with them? Do you because you probably there sometimes happens, at least to me, that I'm thinking, okay, what's the real problem here? Or they say, like, who's the customer? Everybody. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, do you take them through your own process? I mean, how do you approach the narrative side? I mean, they
Yes. It's interesting. It's a great question. We approach the narrative side using a very tried and true process that anybody can go on the internet and learn about. And the process is actually called Story Brand. It's by a guy named Donald Miller, and it's a very famous process. It basically builds narratives for companies and products that mirror the narrative arc of a Hollywood movie. And so I can go through that a little bit. A customer is the hero, and the hero has a specific problem. The hero then encounters a guide, aka the company or the product, who gives them a plan and helps them overcome that problem and not fail. So and I'm being a little simplistic here. Again, the framework is Story Brand. It's one we use and we've used hundreds of times, literally, to help clients understand, okay, here's where you think you are narrative-wise. Here's where you might want to be narrative-wise. And I'll be honest, sometimes we run into teams that are so engineering-driven and focused, and there's not a marketer in the room. And we have to say, you know what? We'll go out and we'll try your version of this. And we think it's going to fail, but we'll try it. It's your money. And if it doesn't work, you're going to give us a shot trying our version. So the balance sometimes with engineering teams is they need to see their own idea tested before they will trust you to test your version of it. So we definitely have been in that situation. That's the framework we use.
Now, that also leads me to this question, which you create the narrative, but let's imagine that you might want to target some not printed media, but like newspapers or some journalists that they write on digital media about this. What do you think it cares more? I mean, the connection, the previous work that you have with them, or the narrative? Will they? Because sometimes, I mean, I was at some point in my life on the startup side, was like, okay, the key here is to find the journalists who want to talk about it, and they will talk of whatever we tell them to talk about, right? Regardless of the narrative, as long as it's new. Like they're just looking for novelty, not for narrative. Do you think is that true, or the journalist like really cares, or like, hey, who's this for? What about the narrative? Or some would say, give me some fresh thing, because sometimes I see a lot of products that
It's it's a great question. I have a very strong opinion on the answer. So I'm far on one side here.
narrative.
I'll use an example from my own personal life to illustrate my answer. I have an absolutely wonderful wife. I love her very much, and we have a great relationship. My wife almost never does what I say. She picks the restaurants we go to. Just because we have a great relationship doesn't mean I get my way or get what I want all the time. And I think that applies with media and influencers as well. So we have influencers and we have media that we've worked with many times over the years. And these are people at the biggest outlets of the world, TechCrunch, The Verge, the Wirecutter, whatever it is. Big media outlets or big KOLs, and if we go to them with something that is not tight in terms of narrative, in terms of originality, in terms of differentiation, they're just going to say no. So it doesn't matter that we have worked with somebody, 10 times on 10 amazing keyboards, let's say. And I'm here, I'll use a real example. But Mark Sparrow, who's a keyboard writer at Forbes. Mark He's covered a myriad of our clients over the years. We know a hell of a lot about keyboards. As I said to you before, Keychron is a client of ours. So we've been in the space for years. And Mark's covered a ton of Keychron products, including products from other companies. If I come to him with a keyboard that just doesn't really make sense, with a product narrative that's really weak, he's going to tell me to go to hell. And I think that's a little bit of a myth that people believe about PR, partly because the PR companies tell them this and the PR companies perpetuate the myth that, it's who you know, and I'm basically a human Rolodex and they'll do whatever I say. They will not do whatever I say. They are just like my wife. She does not do whatever I say.
Okay, that's actually a very good point. Yeah, I mean, I definitely I believe that a narrative is probably better than just a connection, because at some point, if you just keep giving them crap, they're gonna say, hey, I mean, I don't want to write about this stuff.
That's right. Connection gets your email opened. Connection might get your email opened.
It's just like they have a standard, especially if they want to have like a big media outlet. They cannot just post whatever. I mean, but still, these I think this process that you have with the narrative, that like it's not just giving them anything and they will write about it. That also puts pressure on PR companies, because you cannot tell the customer like, okay, we're going to be specifically in this media, because they will write whatever garbage we provide. No, there is another you have this process of convincing the journalist or PR or blogger to write about it, and that's something that I believe many companies don't understand about PR, or they are really wary, saying like, okay, I'm putting my money, like it's not like this logic of $100 will be per media outlet. Like I don't think you can actually make this ratio of $1 per article. That doesn't exist, I guess. How do you overcome these things when the customer, or the company is coming with like, how many media outlets are gonna be published on,
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, and the media world has changed a lot in the last 2 years. Absolutely, things are very, very different, and I'm not just talking about. I'm talking about the rise of people who write on Substack. I'm talking about new forms and new platforms of influencers. I'm talking about the rise and fall of certain platforms where influencers were plying their trade. I'm talking about the declining audience for traditional media. There's been a lot of flux in our world, and that's made the job interesting. But you're absolutely right. If we are being honest, we cannot say before we start, hey, client, you are going to be in the Wall Street Journal, or you are going to be covered by VentureBeat.
Yeah.
We do not know that until we know it. The reality is that's part of the game, and the inability of us to say, hey, we can guarantee this is what makes the output of our channel worthwhile. So the fact that the media is earned is what makes it valuable. There is absolutely, and there are ways to kind of quantify the outputs of earned media and the value of PR, and we can talk about that in a second, because I think it's a great topic and a lot of people have misunderstandings about it. But yeah, we can't make guarantees. There are agencies, there are entities out there now that I believe are absolute shysters, and I believe that they are bad actors, if you will, and they're out there saying, hey, we are a PR agency and we can guarantee you placement within 2 weeks. Well, that's not earned media. What they're doing is they're buying space in the far corners of VentureBeat or Bustle or Forbes or Core 77 or wherever. They're buying this space from the media outlets. They're getting AI and or some ghostwriter in the Philippines to write an article that is then labeled not written by Core 77 editorial staff. It is absolute bullshit. It is absolutely worthless. It doesn't even get indexed by Google. But these entities are out there saying, hey, we'll guarantee you PR placement. It is not true. Do not believe it.
I think the main, so in this case, could you say that also being in the industry and developing relationships with some previous outlets also increases the value of the job? I mean, you're going to present them to them, and then, I mean, there's always a moment of like presenting, and then the journalist will peak, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and that, I think that also goes for deals with KOLs that you're paying. You can go to, probably not going to happen, but you could go to Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, right? Biggest tech reviewer in the world, biggest YouTuber for tech in the world. Regularly, Keychron products appear on Marquez Brownlee's channel because Marquez Brownlee happens to love Keychron. He happens to genuinely love the product. Does Keychron have to pay the $350,000 to get on there that some brands pay Marquez Brownlee? No, they don't. But that is not a strategy you want to bank on. That happens so rarely. So I think it's hard to guarantee anything with earned media in the context of outlets like TechCrunch, but it's even hard to guarantee and predict how some KOLs will react to the deals you might be proposing and how much and whether you need to pay them.
Yeah. I mean, also because like I see some companies specifically on Amazon that they are they go for like a micro blogging. They would say, okay, we're gonna give free products to a whole bunch of people here, and assuming that would create same impact that sometimes PR, right?
Yes.
What would be your position when they come up with these ideas? Like,
is
sometimes micro influencer campaigns work. Sometimes they can work. Typically, in our experience, you need a lot of micro influencers. And the reason you need a lot of micro influencers kind of had a moment last year. Everyone was like, oh, this is the way to do it. And a lot of big brands were partnering with influencers who didn't have huge followings. And sometimes it worked okay. Yeah. In our experience, micro influencers, the lion's share, if you went out and you said, we'll do a campaign with 200 of these, well, maybe 20 would actually do something in terms of traffic. It's kind of like the Pareto principle, but even a little less percentage-wise. In my experience, it's not that I'm crapping all over this as a strategy, because it's worked for some people. I'm just saying you need a lot, and you need to be prepared for the fact that a lot of these micro influencers are probably just people who want some free samples of stuff, and they're not going to do a hell of a lot for you.
I agree with you. And I also like some of the customers say they use the same proportion that you just did. Like, I mean, out of 100 of these guys, maybe 10 drive some sales day 1, 2, and then that's it, period. They cannot rely on that, and that also involves a lot of. I mean, you within your PR services, you also use KOLs and influencers, right? That probably like 15 years ago you were not using. So you can include them.
I think a modern PR program of any sort has to cross. I don't think an agency can survive anymore or do good things for clients just doing traditional media, just doing TechCrunch and the New York Times and The Verge or whatever. You have to go to where a company's audiences are, and that absolutely means KOLs often. It might even mean weirder places. So as I said, we do a lot of affiliate work as well. And sometimes you run into these like Facebook groups of housewives in Ohio or something. Yeah. And you drop a product on them and they're like, holy cow. And it drives a whole ton of sales. And people are like, what the hell is this? It's like a bunch of housewives in middle America. And it all of a sudden blows up.
Wow. It was like some micro worlds that we're never aware of that they are actually working. Right. They actually do work. But I think
that's it. I've never even been to Ohio. But like,
I think though, I mean, you manage these processes, right? Because when I see these companies, sometimes like they go one by one with these influencers, and that takes a lot of energy in management, right? Like, I mean, sending the samples, talk to the guys, see what they're gonna say, etc.
We do. We manage it A to Z for people. We even manage people's affiliate platform. So the affiliate platform we prefer over all others is really impact.com. Impact is used by all the world's biggest media. Okay. It's a great platform for a number of reasons. But yeah, sometimes people hire us and they're like, let's go. Drive, 30K in sales a month on Impact, and we'll just run the whole thing. Recruiting influencers, making sure they got samples, whatever. That's how we do. Yeah, we're pretty turnkey with most of our clients, and most of our clients from Asia like that. I think obviously there are fees attached to that. It's not yeah. You're not buying a candy bar. It costs money, but there's benefits that accrue, I think, from natives to the region and native speaking and all of that stuff.
Okay. And then just to wrapping up a little bit on the interview, the talk. What from all these years that you've been doing this, what's the thing? I mean, what are the outlets that say, not specific outlets, but type of media or blogs or social media platforms that you see that are like really on decline, that it's not that useful to invest there, and some others or some other techniques that you would say this is the way to go? It could be like, I don't know, AI something, or what are the trends that you're seeing this going on? I don't know. Catalog, let's say catalog sales is dead, focus on this, or something on the narrative that you are seeing that doesn't work anymore. This works now better. It could be like, I don't know, LGBT focus. I don't know.
It's a great question, and I'm gonna answer it with a little bit of an annoying answer. Is that it depends on the company and product you're pushing. So, for example, Gen Z and Gen Alpha and younger kids, the traditional media is completely irrelevant to them. So if you are pushing a very Gen Z centric product or Gen Alpha centric product, and you think that the placement in Wirecutter, New York Times is going to move the needle, it's not. That's stupid. So you got to go where they are. It might be that you need an activation in Minecraft or Fortnite or something completely weird that my mother has never heard of, but the Gen Alpha might care about. So what is irrelevant and what is relevant depends on the audience. We just finished a mandate with a company in Arizona that essentially had a service to bring garbage. It's going to sound funny, from garbage cans from the house to the curb. The market was completely old people and short-term rentals, but old people. Okay. So being in the local printed paper in Tucson, Arizona, or Seattle, Washington, or whatever was absolutely relevant to this company.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of placements we were going for. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I picked up a printed newspaper. And I kind of like, I have a romance with words and things like that. I like printed things. But this was what this company needed. Nobody under 50, I think, is doing that anymore, reading their local paper version daily, you know.
Yes,
but
yes,
for
yes.
these people, it worked well. So I never want to say anything is dead. I think one of the interesting things in marketing, and you know this too, I'm sure, is that people are always declaring things dead. Oh my God, the billboard is dead. Well, Apple still uses billboards. There's a reason. They're not shit at marketing.
True.
You know, platforms and stuff change, and I think platforms are relevant to the audience. The one that I would, if I had to be put on the spot, the platform that I think is really on the decline and might die is Twitter or X. I just think it's kind of been rendered irrelevant.
I think it's like too much noise there, right? Too much noise, and it's kind of like a battleground for cultural ideas.
Yeah, nasty ones often.
Nasty ones for sure. Yeah, I think like it became more like let's fight to one another in how the world should be. But I think brands are like, I don't want to take position into this. Also because you seem to be like you can be posted, you can be end up with your brand next to some topic that is completely irrelevant or nasty, and you don't want to be there in that situation, I guess. But
That's it.
it's something that this is sorry, I promise this is going to be the last question, but this is something that happened to a company that we work with, and they used a heavily cold email strategy to pick up whatever influencer on YouTube they could pick for their musical instrument product. I'm not going to say exactly what it was, but something like that. And they really annoyed some of these YouTubers with their cold email. Like, it was a very repetitive cold email chain, like, I mean, done by an intern. And they got the product and they bashed some of them. They really bashed on the product, like, don't buy this crap, whatever. Two things: is this good PR, even if they're bashing the product? I mean, it's or and the on the other side, what do you think they should do? I think they took the wrong approach because they were telling the YouTubers that they were going to sue them if they would not put the video down, which reacted more. I think that was
I would I'd love to chat with this group, and we would definitely need very high fees for that.
I'll share you. I'll share you probably the link to this so you have an idea of what was the. It was a very dramatic for them, but I think they managed it wrong. How do you usually like? Do you think publicity is just publicity, even if it's bad publicity?
I absolutely hate the expression "all press is good press." I think that it's so simplified, and it really downgrades humanity in a way. People know when something is crap or bullshit, and I don't think that all press is good press. There are people, I guess, who have made this argument and continue to make it, but I'm definitely not in that camp. And in terms of this company, the first thing we would do would be getting with the people that were insulted and harassed and offering a sincere apology and seeing how we could rectify it. This sounds like a absolutely boneheaded strategy and execution, and it seems like if their brand is going to continue as the brand that it is, which is probably a discussion I would also have if the hate was big enough, is that we need to change the brand name. If they were not going to do that, and even if they were, it's time to reach out to these people individually and see what we can do to make amends and make things right. And that's what I would do privately initially.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach. Usually, I think that even if it's like bad publicity, it might work for politics, where they want to just drive attention all the time, but not for consumer products. Or I have my reserves about consumer products because I can understand that sometimes some people do not believe all the time on YouTubers. So if a YouTuber says this is a crap product, they might be, maybe it's a good product and this guy is just talking bad about it for some reason. But for the most part, I think it's complicated. But provided that you gotta go, you actually asked me before all this one. I want to thank you for this talk. I think it was very insightful. I learned a lot, and I'm happy that you were there. I mean, we're going to publish the video, send it over to you, and then also send it over to our customers, so they can, grow their network, understand a little bit more how PR works, and hopefully, you can get in touch with them.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I really enjoyed the conversation. You asked very thoughtful questions that hit on a lot of the misperceptions people have about the channel and about KOL and media and all of these things that make up the house of PR.
Well, thanks a lot for sharing all that, and I think it was really valuable. I really enjoyed it. So thanks a lot, and see you soon, Jackson. Bye-bye.